Oh, God, get me out of here. What a mistake. What made me think this would work? I've got nothing left to say. Wait, I've got one.
These videos are not for children. If you're a children, then piss off.
Hey there, it's me, your least favorite YouTuber, the Infuso. And look, I'm gonna be honest with you. I'm really not that much of a Seinfeld fan. Not because I dislike the show or anything, but more so because I've never really sat down to give it a real chance. I've seen episodes that I've liked before, heard jokes in passing from the show that have made me laugh, and seen it referenced a million times over. But I've never really watched the show start to finish like so many people in my personal life tell me I should. So I figure why not start now? And in watching the show's very first season for the very first time, there was only one thought that crossed my mind. And that was, this sucks. And I don't mean the show, necessarily, but this season of this show, it just sucks. It is not great. And I decided to take to the internet to find out if I was the only one with that opinion. But lo and behold, the vast majority of places actually list Seinfeld's first season as being Seinfeld's worst season. A pattern that we're all too familiar with here on this channel, as it wasn't that long ago, just a week as a matter of fact, that we confirmed the same exact thing about both Parks and Recreation and It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia, which ironically enough is often referred to as Seinfeld on crack. And even earlier than that, we spoke about how the first season of The Office was the most lackluster as well. Why are so many great shows' first seasons not as good? Why are so many shows off making terrible first impressions? Why does it seem they're at their all-time worst when people are being introduced to them? Well, there are a couple reasons for that. The most blatant being that at this point in the show's run, it just doesn't know what it is at the time. Like human beings, a show's first couple years are their developmental years. And in the case of Seinfeld, it had a lot to further develop. Case in point, the show was originally titled The Seinfeld Chronicles. But what's really interesting about all this is that while the first season of Seinfeld is significantly different from the rest of the show, the first episode of Seinfeld is significantly different from anything of the rest of the season. Even some of the show's most basic points and premises are still yet undefined and undecided. The main hangout of the series is Monk's Cafe. You'll probably remember it as being where a lot of the show's most memorable back and forths have gone down. But in the first episode, the cafe has been replaced by Pete's Luncheonette. And also missing in action is Elaine, completely absent to match the crew's chaotic energy, while also bringing a female perspective to their normally abnormal antics. And in her place is the Luncheonette's waitress, Claire. Claire would listen to the guys' problems when she took their orders. However, unfortunately for them, her giving a shit isn't exactly on the menu. Funnily enough, both the waitress and her place of employment were only ever incorporated into the pilot episode, and they are never heard from again within the rest of the series. Elaine's eventual emergence in the second episode adds new energy to the show, but even in saying that, it's nothing compared to a lot of what she'll do later. She's definitely a welcome addition, but in the larger picture, she's much more toned down here than she'd be in later seasons. You're not really diving into the character, instead this is a little bit of a dip your toe introduction. I don't think they had the full premise of her character and what they would do with her. Similarly, the character of Cosmo Kramer certainly wasn't finalized in his first appearance on the show. Not only does he not look like the same character, but he's not even referred to as Kramer, or Cosmo for that matter. In the first episode, he's called Kessler, and he's a bit more mild and tame from the character in its prime, but there's definitely a spark there. George is a bit different too. He's substantially more stable in this season than he'd become in later seasons. He almost comes off as like a Woody Allen type, with just how nervous and nebbish he is. He's not yet fanatical and prone to outburst at annoyance. The one character who largely feels the same is the titular character Seinfeld. Jerry is the same exact character start to finish on the show. From the pilot to the finale, it's just Jerry. He is the same extraordinary, beyond boring everyman that I don't even care enough to finish this sentence for. And look, I don't know how fans of the show feel. I don't know if this is a common held belief. Again, I've never been a part of this fandom, but Seinfeld the person was always my least favorite part of Seinfeld the show. I did not care about him. You know, I always liked Kramer. He was always funny to me. And the older I get, the more funny I find George. Used to love watching Elaine lose it. Even now, I'm a huge fan of Larry David, but I never really cared for Jerry. Wasn't a Jerry Seinfeld guy. And it doesn't help matters that he would later in life go on to make the B-movie, which is the bane of my existence. Anyway, a lot of the first season feels like it's unsure of itself. There's a bit of uncertainty there. And that makes sense, as even casting wasn't down to a T just yet. During this season, Jerry's father is played by a completely different actor who portrays the character completely differently. Here he's much more laid back and relaxed and surprisingly helpful. A very obvious contrast to the man he'd one day become. The first Morty isn't bad by any means, but he's not exactly written to make an impression. One thing I really need to highlight here, I'm really glad that these stand-up bits that they emphasized in the first season go on to be toned down significantly. I think when done right, they're a cute little quirk that kind of comes with the show. You know, it's like it's a little signature. Just a pleasant little indicator of what it is you're watching in case you somehow forgot. I think it's fine in practice throughout the rest of the season. But in season 1, I was through with it. It did seem a little excessive in what they used from Seinfeld sets. But more importantly, it felt unnecessary and really annoying. It's unfortunate because these segments seem to be plopped in at random intervals of runtime, and I think it does more to distract those watching from the plots rather than endear an audience to the product. And usually, these tidbits aren't anywhere near as funny as the show seems to think they are.
No, think about it. The washing machine is the nightclub of clothes.
Oh,
You know, it's
brother,
dark,
this
there's
guy
bubbles
stinks!
These would become used less and less by the show as time went on, until eventually they were dropped altogether when Larry David exited the series. And because of the emphasis that's put on them, I get the feeling that Jerry's job as a comedian was supposed to be the hook of the show, but it wound up just eventually becoming a background fact. So all in all, the first season of Seinfeld feels exactly like what it is. A first season of a show. I feel like this season's struggles mainly come from the product trying to figure itself out. The characters' personalities haven't been mapped out just right just yet. They're still missing a lot of their key personality traits. And even more unfortunate than that, it's clear the cast doesn't yet have the chemistry that they'd become famous for having. They just didn't have things down to a formula yet. This season is almost painful to watch. And it's not because it's bad. It's just mostly because it's nothing. This works as an introduction to the characters, I guess, but outside of introducing the audience to the show itself, I don't really feel like anything was accomplished. I know the joke about the show is that it's a show about nothing, but what's great about Seinfeld is that it was able to take the mundane and turn it into something entertaining. But I don't know that they did that here. It kind of just feels like they took the mundane and then they put a camera on it. I think if you're watching Seinfeld, then this handful of episodes is probably easy to skip. And I don't think anyone's going to blame you if you do. But they're also not insultingly terrible. They aren't somehow a mockery to the show itself, but they're definitely not making anyone's top 10 lists anytime soon. Now what I want to emphasize here, that I probably should have emphasized in the previous worst season videos, is that if your first season is your worst season, you're golden, pony boy. The idea is to get better with time, to progress in an upward fashion. So ideally, your first attempt should be your worst attempt. So in that vein, I would say Seinfeld was very successful, as were the shows that I spoke of before. Obviously, the show would improve drastically over time, but it was pretty clear to me, even watching this first season, that it was learning fast. This season got better and better episode by episode, and by the time it hit the last 2 episodes of the season, the show is now starting to resemble the show that I remembered watching. I mean, by the end of episode 5, Elaine is matching her co-star's comedic chops, George is slowly turning into Larry David, Kramer is close to becoming the highlight of every episode he's in, and his over-the-top mannerisms have now finally met his over-the-top statements, and Jerry Seinfeld, well, Jerry Seinfeld is still Jerry Seinfeld, unfortunately. Although if I have to say one positive thing about the man behind the B-movie, I will say, I enjoy watching the guy be a giant nerd and put Superman in everything that he does.
He's got super strength, super speed. I'm sure he's got super humor.
I think that, but either you're born with a sense of humor or you're not.
That's why the first season of Seinfeld is the worst season of Seinfeld. And if you like this video and want to see more Seinfeld content here on this channel, then let me know in the comment section below by leaving a comment saying,
Superman can go back in time?
We went over that.
With all that being said, I was your least favorite YouTuber, the Infuso, and I thank you for watching. Hope to see you in the next one.
I am vengeance. I am the night, and that was V Infuso. Just remember, If you're not tuning in, then you're missing out.
So, if you like the words that came out of his mouth hole, and you too would like to become a V-generate, don't forget to like and subscribe. Thanks for watching, nerds!
And if you're not joining the fun, you're in for one bad day. And you know what they say about having one bad day?
Catch him next time. Same bat time, same bat channel.